I have mentioned multiple times in past videos that Modi and the BJP love to boast and fabricate, causing catastrophic consequences for India. This behavior, amplified by Godi media, has created an illusion among Indians that India is significant, powerful, and has many friends, leading to foreign, economic, and defense policies entirely detached from reality. This national frenzy gained some momentum when the China-US trade and technology war began, as Americans saw India as important and sought to ally with it against China. The Chinese also viewed India as a key nation and were willing to make concessions. Combined with Modi's penchant for theatrical speeches and international media's constant praise of India, this frenzy ballooned into an ever-growing bubble. However, just as everyone was swept up in the madness, the bubble could no longer hold and burst. What awaits Indians next is a series of bad news. Not only is the US abandoning India, withdrawing investments, imposing tariffs, and humiliating India in public opinion, but China and other global South nations also find it hard to trust India again. China has imposed export restrictions on India for rare earths, urea, industrial machinery, engineering equipment, and pharmaceutical raw materials, while banning technical workers from working in India. At the recent UN General Assembly, dozens of Islamic countries collectively condemned India, supporting Pakistan's claims on the Kashmir issue, further highlighting India's status as a global orphan. Indeed, India has no true friends left. If one must find a friend for India, it would be Israel, which was collectively boycotted at the UN General Assembly. Sadly, Israel actually looks down on countries like India, offering at most verbal support. In this video, we briefly analyze the significant harm caused to India by Modi and the BJP's boasting through real issues. First, Modi and the BJP rose to power by opposing Muslims and reviving the fabricated Bharat empire of Hindu extremists, which doomed Modi to adopt hardline policies against Muslims. Since they boasted India as a global superpower and a natural ally of the US and the West, India had to maintain a tough stance against China, seeking opportunities to provoke China to regain some psychological comfort for the 1962 defeat. Thus, India had to maintain a hardline stance against both China and Pakistan simultaneously. Once populist sentiments are ignited, they only grow stronger and eventually spiral out of control. Under the incitement of Modi and Godi media, hatred between Hindus, Muslims, and other ethnic groups has intensified, especially between Hindus and Muslims, reaching a point of irreconcilability. Modi holds power, so suppressing Muslims is not an issue, but India's hundreds of millions of Muslims will gradually unite and coalesce, eventually erupting into a powerful resistance that will tear India apart. The consequence of provoking China is that India picked a fight with an opponent over 10 times stronger, with weapons 2 generations ahead, industrial capabilities decades ahead, and far superior military training and morale. After India's crushing defeat in the Galwan Valley clash with China, it quickly realized it was no match for China. However, the Indian public could not accept such failure, so the media fabricated fake news, claiming victory. Bollywood produced films indulging in fantasies, satisfying BJP supporters. The consequences were clear. Besides facing severe Chinese sanctions, it prompted China to arm Pakistan, enhancing Pakistan's equipment to counter India's provocations. Under populist incitement, since India could supposedly defeat China, Pakistan had to be punished as well. When armed attacks erupted in Kashmir, India's war fervor was fully mobilized, leaving Modi no choice but to launch airstrikes against Pakistan. If he showed weakness, the myth of the Great Bharat Empire's revival, built by him and Godi media, would collapse. Before the air battle, India's Rafale fighters were already locked on and warned by Pakistan. Normally, the Indian military should have halted operations, reflected internally, identified issues, and sought new fighters after corrections. However, Modi loves to boast, as do his generals. The military deliberately ignored the severity of Pakistan locking onto their fighters first, and Modi did not allow military weakness, as he was informed that India's Rafale fighters could dominate China's J-20, let alone Pakistan's J-10C. The results are well known. According to Trump, India lost 5 to 7 fighters, with some European media exaggerating that India lost 11 fighters. The outcome of this air battle was catastrophic for Modi, but he and the BJP chose to cover the truth with lies. They organized a 10-day national celebration, suppressed global media reports, and even blocked my small channel with 20 to 30,000 followers. Thus, Indians, under false reporting, fell into a frenzy. Modi is great. Bharat is first. Jai Hind. However, such clownish behavior not only ruined the Indian government's credibility, but also caused the US to lose patience with India entirely. Trump saw clearly that Modi's India lacked combat capability and had limited value to the US. Instead of wasting resources on such a country, it was better to exploit it for profit. So, Trump imposed a 50% tariff on India, tightened H-1B visas, and levied a 100% tariff on India's core pharmaceutical industry. India's series of humiliations from Trump stemmed from Modi and the BJP's excessive boasting without the strength to back it up, convincing Trump that high pressure would ensure Modi met all US demands. Yet, India is not just the BJP and Modi. There is also Rahul Gandhi's Congress Party and other parties. India's heavy losses in the air battle would leak through the military. With the US president and global media openly mocking India, Modi could not fully suppress the information. Opposition parties would relentlessly question Modi and the BJP on the air battle's truth, embarrassing Modi. Godi media long portrayed the US as a beacon of humanity and a trustworthy ally. But now, with the US president and media humiliating India, Indians are caught in a maddening contradiction. Should they believe the Americans or Modi? One could say Modi's fans are mentally split. But this is just the beginning, as Modi needs to fabricate more lies to cover his past boasts and falsehoods. To hide the heavy losses of Rafale fighters, India bypassed tenders and purchased over 100 Rafale fighters through government contracts at nearly $200 million each. While this concealed the loss of multiple Rafales, it created bigger problems for the Indian Air Force. The Rafale lost to the J-10C in air combat, and only by acquiring fifth-generation fighters like the F-35 could India regain an equipment advantage. But to sustain Modi's lies, the Indian military wasted money on fighters incapable of securing victory. Once Pakistan's J-35 fighters arrive, India's Air Force will face the pressure of using fourth-generation fighters against fifth-generation fighters from two fronts, risking greater humiliation in future air battles. The Americans also understand India's predicament. If Modi wants US military aid, he would need to offer 3, 5, or even 10 times the amount paid to France to gain US forgiveness. This would plunge India into a new crisis, as 1/3 of the Indian government's fiscal revenue is already used to pay interest. Offering massive funds to the US would lead to bankruptcy, with almost no other path. The most terrifying part is that this cycle cannot be broken. If Modi steps down, he faces a high likelihood of arrest for corruption or treason. To stay in power, he must fabricate more lies to deceive the public, and these lies will drag India, a nation of 1.4 billion people, toward the abyss of failure.